I have the great honor of serving as Dean of this medical school. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to the 45th commencement ceremony for the McGovern Medical School at the University of Texas Health Sciences Center at Houston. This is a very special day for our students, for their families and friends. But we cannot start today's celebration without a few moments to reflect on the horrendous school shooting that took place this morning in Santa Fe, Texas, in our own backyard. We're deeply saddened by the loss of life and the injuries, and our hearts go out to the children and families whose lives are forever changed by this senseless act of violence. As individuals and as a society, we're again confronted with the question of what we can and should do to prevent gun violence. Graduates, you're entering the noble profession of medicine today, dedicating your lives and careers to improving health and well-being. As physicians, as members of society, we must raise our voices and use our influence to do more to address the terrible epidemic of violence in our country. We cannot shy away from the difficult conversations surrounding this issue. Please pause for a moment of silence in honor and respect for those killed or injured, and in thoughtful contemplation of this major public health crisis that endangers the most vulnerable and most valuable of our citizens, our children. On my far right, in the third row, is Dr. Sheila Lahode, Associate Dean for Admissions and Student Affairs. Next is Dr. Latanya Love, Associate Dean for Admissions and Student Affairs and Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion. Dr. Philip Orlander, Associate Dean for Educational Programs. Dr. Gary Rosenfeld, Associate Dean for Educational Programs. Next is Dr. Mark Chassé, Associate Dean for Alumni Relations and Assistant Dean for Admissions and Student Affairs. Dr. William Weems, Associate Dean for Information Technology and Assistant Vice President for Academic Technology. Dr. Nancy McNeil, Associate Dean for Administrative Affairs. Dr. Tom Cole, Director of the McGovern Center for Humanities and Ethics. In the second row, to my far right, Dr. Margaret Uthman, Associate Dean for Educational Programs. Dr. Michael Blackburn, UT Health's Executive VP, Chief Academic Officer, and Dean of our graduate school. Dr. Jiajing Zhang, Dean of the School of Biomedical Informatics. Dr. Bella Patel, Vice Dean for Healthcare Quality and Regional Chief Medical Officer for Memorial Hermann Texas Medical Center. Dr. Rich Andraci, Executive Dean for Clinical Affairs. Dr. John Hancock, Vice Dean for Basic Research and Executive Director of the Brown Foundation Institute of Molecular Medicine. Mr. William Schrader, Director of the McGovern Foundation. Dr. Skip Gleason, Associate Dean for Admissions and Student Affairs. And in the first row, to my far right, Dr. George Sansel, Senior Vice President, Academic and Research Affairs, and Chief Marshal of this ceremony. Dr. Patricia Butler, Vice Dean for Educational Programs. Dr. Margaret McNeese, Vice Dean for Admissions and Student Affairs. Mr. Matthew Whited, President of the graduating class. Dr. Maurice Levy, Class of 1979, President of the Medical School Alumni Association and Physician-in-Chief and Chief of Pediatric Dermatology at Dell Children's Medical Center. Dr. George Santos, President of the Harris County Medical Society. Mr. Charles Stokes, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Memorial Hermann Healthcare System. Dr. Giuseppe Colasurdo, President of UT Health. And finally, our keynote speaker this afternoon and honored guest, Dr. Howard Baukner, Editor-in-Chief of JAMA and the JAMA Network. Stage has contributed in some way to your medical education. We're all delighted to be here to celebrate with you on this wonderful day. Thank you for joining us here today to celebrate our exceptional graduates and this remarkable milestone. What an extraordinary sight as we look out at you from the stage. I have to say, you look just beautiful. Each of the physicians here today remembers their own graduation. I certainly do. A very special day forever in your memories. As the parent of a young physician, I sat in the audience not too long ago in great pride, just like your parents and friends here today. And I'll share a little secret with you. This is an amazing moment for your families. Look around and thank them and feel the warmth in their hearts and the pride in their smiles. Please join me in thanking your families and the many others who helped you to get here today.
Thank you, Dr. Stoll, and thank you to the administration, faculty, and everybody who made the journey to be with us here today. I want to give a special thank you to those who have actually been on this journey with us. I'm talking about the husbands and wives who stayed home and took care of the children so that their significant others could focus on their studies. I'm talking about the parents who supported us in high school, in undergrad, and throughout medical school. Do you remember back in the day when we took about 10 separate finals in an 18-day period? The dinners that the parents provided us were probably the only real meals that we ate the entire month. For all the children in the audience, thank you for lending us your parents. One day you will grow up to see just how incredible your parents are. Speaking of growing up, 4 years ago, the class of 2018 met together for the yearly retreat. The theme was, When I Grow Up. As part of the retreat, arguably our school's greatest tradition, we were asked to dream up of an alternative reality where we grew up to be something other than a physician. Classmates came as archaeologists, crocodile enthusiasts, pilots, policemen and women. We actually have a former police officer in our graduating class. Knowing each of you and what you have accomplished during medical school, I have no doubt that you could have been any of those things, and you would have been spectacular at it too. Of all those possibilities, you decided that when you grew up, you wanted to be a physician. And today marks the culmination of years of dreams, hard work, and dedication. During the past 4 years, we spent many nights with our noses in books, frantically studying, practicing, and preparing for the next day. Those same students showed up on weeknights to play intramural sports, on weekdays to give tours of the school, and on weekends to provide medical care for low-income patients. Together, we provided over 36,000 people with medication for an entire year through our partnership with N7. Our students served at the national level in the AAMC, and our SNMA chapter, which supports current and future underrepresented minority medical students, was named the national chapter for 2017. It's important to recognize that much of our strength as a class came from our diversity. Over the past 4 years, we came together at various times to discuss tragedies and to respond to national conversations. Our education was enriched by our association with each other. The diversity of our class built bridges and created empathy for one another. I look forward to the many children who will look up to each of us one day and say, that doctor looks or sounds like me. Medical school is hard. One night, our class's softball team put out a distress call. They needed one more person or they were going to have to forfeit. I'm not much of a ball player myself, but I did not want them to have to take an automatic loss. So I showed up with a borrowed mitt and asked to be put somewhere where the ball would never come. They made me the pitcher. I was bad at t-ball, and I don't even think they have pitchers in t-ball. So I had no idea what I was doing. Not surprisingly, sometimes that's how medical school feels. A medical student is nearly always fighting off sleep, studying constantly, and facing new situations daily. It's easy to feel inadequate. Not to mention the fact that some lessons have to be learned in the very moment. When my attending handed me a scalpel and told me to make an incision, I suddenly realized how much I didn't know. I could visualize the anatomy, and I could think through the steps of the surgery, but I had no idea how hard to push the scalpel. Talk about stressful. Each of us responded differently to the stresses of medical school life. One response stood out in particular. While most of us were complaining about waking up at 3 a.m. for our surgery rotation, One of our classmates was waking up to get ready for her own 3 a.m. surgery. Actually, Claudia Martinez had multiple surgeries during medical school. Claudia dreamed her entire life of becoming a doctor. Specifically, she dreamed of becoming a brain surgeon, like the very ones who treated her. Claudia has taken to social media to document her experiences as both a patient and a student doctor. Her story has touched people all over the world. With her permission, I want to share some of her words. She said, "These past couple of months have been extremely difficult. My health has not been doing well. As my doctor put it, you've been fighting to survive each day. My days have been filled with doctor after doctor, each finding new problems that need to be addressed. New problems with my heart, my nervous system, GI system. I need you to see this doctor and that doctor. You need to do this test and that test. My doctors look at me and then look down in defeat. You have been through so much. I don't know how your body has survived. I just wish I could lessen your burden, give you a life you deserve." Claudia continues with her characteristic perseverance, and I quote, she says, "God has been so good to me. Even though some may not see my journey as a blessing, to me it has been. Because of my doctors, my dream is still alive, and to be present now is enough. And if it's God's will, I'll be present to treat my future patients," end quote. A few weeks later, she wrote, "We may be running next to each other, but we are all running in our own race in life. We all have a different beginning, different detours along the way, and a different end that we are striving for. But for everyone, success begins where you are. The day you decide to enter your race and never pull yourself out. My entire undergraduate and now medical school career has been spent living in and out of the hospital, and many people have asked how I've managed to continue my journey of becoming a doctor when I've gone through what many say is impossible. One of the reasons is I never compare myself to others. I'm in my own race with my own talents, setbacks, detours, and limitations, and so are you. Today I encourage you, if you haven't already, no matter where you are, enter your race and compete with no one but yourself. You too have your own unique gifts that are waiting to be shared with the world. Don't be afraid to fail, be afraid to never try." As you can tell from these select words, Claudia has taught us more about what it means to set goals and to persevere than we could have ever learned on our own. To listen to Claudia is to learn what our patients experience and go through every single day. As I have said previously to Claudia personally, our hands, the hands of those who are graduating here today, are her hands too, because we have been made better doctors by knowing her. I want to switch gears to talk of another person in particular who has inspired our class. In the audience tonight is one of our very first patients. Every year, Becca Elkins arrives in the classroom of 240 future doctors donning their white coats for the first time and bravely allows medical students to give her a medical interview and neurological examination. Becca has Friedreich's ataxia, a condition which affects her movement. Just entering her teenage years, Becca's condition started to manifest itself, and suddenly tasks that she was previously able to do without much thought, such as tying her shoes or walking, became increasingly difficult to accomplish. Each year, Becca bravely shares her experiences with the first-year class. Her accomplishments in this regard are threefold. First, she advocates for those with Friedreich's ataxia in hopes that doctors and researchers will one day be able to find a cure. Second, she gives a face and a story to what we study, reminding us that we are treating patients and not diagnoses. Third, she teaches us how a disease can impact not just her body, but her life at home and with her friends and peers. Thank you, Becca, for being our first patient, and thank you for the lessons that you've taught us. On behalf of the class of 2018, and funded directly by its members, I would like to announce a one-time donation of $1,000 in recognition of perseverance and bravery to both Claudia Martinez and Becca Elkins. In conclusion, I want you to think for a moment about the type of doctor that you wanted to be when you grew up. Try and remember the med student who put on the short white coat for the first time. You probably had dreams of changing the world, of impacting people's lives, of creating new innovations in medicine and surgery. Now that we are at that point that we've dreamed and worked so hard to be at, now that we've earned every stitch of our long white coats, go out and be the doctor that the dreamer in you believed that you would be. Today's the day. Classmates, thank you. It's been one of the greatest honors of my life to be your class president and to be graduating alongside you today. Everybody, welcome to the ceremony and congratulations, doctors of the class of 2018.
Will the graduates please rise? President Colasurdo, on behalf of the faculty of the McGovern Medical School at the University of Texas Health Sciences Center at Houston, it is with great personal and professional pleasure that I present to you the candidates for the degree Doctor of Medicine.
We're almost there. By the authority vested by law in the Board of Regents of the University of Texas System, I now confer upon each of you who has completed the requirements of the degree Doctor of Medicine with all rights, responsibilities, and obligations. Congratulations, Professor.
Abed Abdelaziz. Leland Abrams.
Let's go!
Stephanie Hee-Young Han.
Let's go, Stephanie!
Julio Cesar Albarracin.
All right, Leland!
Sarah Asma Ali. David Amaro Dreitner. Anna Whitney Anderson. Alexander Brooks Aria. Dane Thomas Bailey. Alice Baker. Sadhana Balasubramanian.
She didn't get as much coming down with her dad. She got her.
Christina Cook Barton. Richard Winston Beach. Drew Bean. Jessica Marie Beardsley. Christy Beekman. Logan Murphy Benoit. Rachel Ann Bishop.
Rose! Woo!
Brittany Bowles. Rachel Bauer. Kyle Bowers. Kimberly Brown. Kelly Michelle Caldwell. Christina Nicole Canzaneri. Dylan Carroll. Jennifer Cassidy. Tammy Chuan. Celeste Sedona Lucia Cleveland. Thomas Cameron Connors. Brandon Keith Couch. Stephen David Curry. Bernard Dana. Riley Anderson Dean. Juan D. Delijah. Lavana Ambuja Dharmarajan. Sarah Elizabeth Diamond. Michael Boswell Difflin.